in your opening, you talked a bit about the times and experiences you've had in the mission, and I thought it'd be great just to reflect upon some of the experiences you've had and how they inform what you'd like to do as mayor.
First of all, thank you for being gentle, Bevan. So as I mentioned, I have worked in this neighborhood over the past 15 years in a variety of different capacities. I see Robert Rattana here. He and I served together in the San Francisco DA's office, and we know that the mission continues to be one of the neighborhoods that for years has had issues with public safety. As your next mayor, it is important to me that we continue to work closely in making sure that all of the different law enforcement agencies are collaborating. It's great that we have a police chief, Greg Sir, who I've known from his time when he headed up Mission Station. And I think we do have a real opportunity with him at the helm, with our DA's office, with all of the branches of law enforcement to move us together. I also mentioned that I did 10 seconds. I worked with many immigrant populations here in the community. As a son of immigrants, working with folks to make sure that regardless of your background, regardless of your language ability, you have your labor rights, you have an opportunity to really find the American dream here in the mission has always been important to me. Thank you.
Thanks, David.
So I have a question to Dennis. On the Board of Supervisors, as we all know, we cast votes on many pieces of legislation, and our mayor has to decide whether to sign or to veto legislation. Dennis, I'd like to ask you about a piece of legislation that we spent a lot of time recently at the board on, which is Park Percent. Since, as city attorney, you are very familiar with this legislation, I'd like to ask you yes or no. If you were mayor, would you have signed or vetoed this piece of legislation?
Two things. First of all, I would have signed the legislation. But secondly, I think that what that Park Percent project illustrated was something that we need to be aware of. The same night, you had an 11-0 vote on Treasure Island, and you had a 6-5 vote on Park Percent. What that demonstrated on Treasure Island was that people could come together early to solve problems. They had community collaboration. And from my perspective, whenever you see a 6-5 vote, that should be a red flag for there wasn't enough collaboration and outreach at the outset. And I happen to believe that there could have been greater collaboration by the developer and work through the issues that tenants were fearful of, because they were some of the very same issues that tenants groups had to deal with on the Trinity Plaza deal. And had there been greater collaboration and outreach early on, I think that there could have been a much better consensus as we saw it demonstrated in the Treasure Island bill.
Consensus.
This is my question to John, and David sort of mentioned being the product of an immigrant household. John and I are also products of Latino immigrant households. And we know that immigration is a hot-button issue across this country, and a particular concern here in San Francisco, especially here in the Mission. And John and I have had many discussions about our respective immigrant family experiences, and I'd like to ask him what role you think the Mayor of San Francisco has in making sure that we are respectful of everybody's rights and protective of immigrant rights here in San Francisco.
Very good. Dennis, thank you for the question. My life has been spent, a great part of it, supporting a lot of communities that have been impacted by immigration, whether immigrants themselves or communities that have family members that have recently immigrated. I work at the Janitors Union, which is mostly an immigrant population, immigrant workforce. And as mayor, I want to make sure that we have a stronger sanctuary city. In 2006, I authored part of the budget to create an organization called the San Francisco Immigrant Legal and Education Network, which provides services for immigrants who are in need of immigration lawyers, as well as education about what is happening in terms of changing laws at the local, state, and federal level. It's also an advocacy organization. It's a building network of organizations across our different immigrant communities in San Francisco. I want to strengthen this organization. I want to make sure it has funding to proceed in the future, and I want to create pathways towards citizenship for more immigrants to become citizens and play a more active role in society. Thank you. Question for Senator Leland. I was an author with three other colleagues the Board of Supervisors to put a ballot measure for November's election that would, it's called Parks for People, Parks for the Public, and it prevents future privatization of parks in our public, in our Oregon Park Department. What your position is, and why would you or would you not support it?
I'm absolutely opposed to privatization of any of our public assets. And that's one of the reasons why early on I opposed the fee charge to the Arboretum. I am also opposed to the fact that many of our park facilities now, many of our clubhouses, for example, they are no longer available to the general public. And the reason for that is that there are long-term leases that the Department of Rec and Park have now signed. And so as the general public, there is a sign outside of those particular facilities. And that sign basically reads, "Public, you are not invited, you are not welcome." It is just off-site for you. You can't go in there. And that is not something that I want to support. That is not something that I would do anything that I can to make sure that that doesn't happen. Relative to the measure, I'm sympathetic to it, but I think that it is extremely important for me now that you have that measure, to bring in the different stakeholders to really understand the intricacies of that particular ballot measure. But on principle, I'm absolutely opposed to any privatization of our public facility. Bevan, this is going to be a tough one.